Hi, this is Rick from For Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. I see a lot of couples, and there's something that couples who are getting better, there's something that they share that's easy enough for me to use as an opening illustration about what we're going to be talking about in this video. As couples begin to get better, they argue less, they date more, they lean toward each other instead of away from each other. They do something that I call they turn their W's into L's. They turn their wins into losses. I mean, maybe they go through an entire week without blowing up at each other. Maybe they have been able to successfully go on 2 date nights over the month. They may say something like, yes, we didn't blow up at each other this week, but we're still not as happy as we used to be. Turned a win into a loss. Yes, we may have gone on 2 date nights this month, but they're still so rushed because we have to get back to the kids because of bedtime. Okay, turn a win into a loss. When we turn our wins into losses, what happens is we mess up the narrative of our journey. You and I are on journeys towards something probably spectacular. Better jobs, promotions, helping our kids get into school, better relationships with whoever. We're on good journeys. When we turn our wins into losses, what happens is that when we tell the narrative of us, when we tell our story, it's not a narrative of a good life. It's not a narrative of all these little tiny wins that we've built up on top of each other over our lives. It's a narrative of losers. I mean, it's a narrative of people who have lost at stuff. So I encourage my couples, and I encourage myself, to keep a journal and keep track, keep regular journal entries of our wins, to celebrate the small stuff along our way, because if we keep turning our wins into losses, how do we ever expect to see life as good? Okay, so what about you? Can you think of one area of your own life where you turn wins into losses pretty regularly? At home, at work, with your kids, I don't know. If you can think of an example of times when you turn your wins into losses, please pause the video and talk about it with whoever you're watching with. This video is based on my interpretation of Ecclesiastes all the way in the Old Testament, chapter 5, verses 19 and 20. In this text, it talks about how to identify a win and keep it as a win. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 19 and 20. Moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possessions and the ability to join them, to accept their lot and be happy in their toil, this is a gift of God. They seldom reflect on the days of their life because God keeps them occupied with gladness of heart. Here's the point I'm going to try to make in this video. Track your wins. I've got a friend who sends me a message of a Bible passage every single day, and we read it and we reflect on it on some level, usually at a shallow level because we're busy, we're kind of in and out very quickly. He began to send me passages in Ecclesiastes, and they've really been resonating with me. Now here's the thing. When Ecclesiastes starts resonating with me, it's a sign that I'm getting old. Because Ecclesiastes is a book for the mature and the experienced. This is not a beginner's guide, or this is not a novice's guide. It's for the mature and the experienced, which is a nice way of saying that I'm getting old because I'm really getting into the book of Ecclesiastes. It's considered a book of wisdom, a book reflecting on the experiences of life to find meaning, while at the same time recognizing God's presence and interaction through all of life, in spite of our human condition. This passage that I'm bringing up here really spoke to me out of my devotions with my friend. Here are 2 points that are jumping out to me around the idea of us remembering to track our wins. Point number 1, let's define the win. The text says, when God gives someone wealth and possessions and the ability to enjoy them, to accept their lot, and be happy in their toil, this is a gift of God. Okay, I love this passage because it informs me of what a win actually looks like. And I need to know what a win actually looks like. Because in our culture, I see people seemingly winning at everything. Yet behind the closed doors of my therapy room or as a pastor with me connecting to people, many of the wins that I see, that we see, are pretty superficial. I mean, it's true that some people truly are doing well, but don't worry about others. You've got enough going on in your own life that if you keep looking at the superficial wins of others, you're going to miss out on how you can show up to your own life and live your own adventure. Who cares about the guy who owns the yacht, but his kids will never speak to him again? Who cares about the guy who's got his own plane, but his marriage has fallen apart because he sacrificed everything he truly values? That's not your story. That's not my story. I can't get sidetracked like that. We have our own story. You've got your own story. I've got my own story. But I gotta be honest, I'm right there along with everybody else. When I see all these people that look like they have so much success, I get sidetracked. I need to be grounded around the idea of what a win is. So I like this passage because it helps me to see what a win truly is. I mean, it's hard to know what a win is sometimes with all the fluff and shiny stuff around us. What is a win for you? What is a win for me? Well, here it comes. This is how we recognize a win. First and foremost, we recognize that it's a gift from God. That's where a win starts. If we want to know a better way of defining what a win is, let's start with God. God is the giver of good gifts. God is the giver of gifts that will even make it past this life into whatever's waiting for us afterwards in eternity. If you have wealth, it's a gift from God. If you have possessions, that's a gift from God. Okay, now already we bump into a problem right here with the temptation of turning a W into an L. You may say, yes, I have possessions, but my possessions are not as good as that person's possessions. Well, forget about that. You just turned your win of having a gift from God into a loss because God apparently didn't give you a gift that's equal to somewhere else or better than someone else. Now suddenly, God is not the giver of good gifts. He gives gifts to show that you're a loser rather than a winner. And that's a strange narrative, and it becomes your narrative. Your narrative is that you are less than someone or everyone, and it may actually be God's fault. Maybe he's playing favorites, and I'm not on the good list. I'm on the naughty list, I guess. Well, that's turning a W into an L. That becomes part of our narrative, and we actually believe something about ourselves. We believe that we're less. We believe that our story is less. The truth is that God does give good gifts. Whatever it is that you have, your possessions, whatever wealth it is that you have, that's a W. Don't turn it into an L and create for yourself a narrative that stories your life as a loser and less loved by God and that God may have favorites. Not only is that not true, but that's not going to be helpful to you at all. Possessions and wealth are gifts from God. Whatever level you happen to have them at, they're gifts. Recognize them as wins. In addition to those gifts are the ability to enjoy them. So here's a third kind of thing here. If you got a bicycle and you also have the time to get on it and enjoy it, okay, well, that's another gift. Some people are so overextended that they become time poor. Listen, I got 4 kids. When they were younger, my wife and I truly experienced what it was like to be time poor. And we're celebrating now as we find more flexibility to date more and just go out and have fun together. The time to enjoy each other and your stuff is a gift of God. That is a win. There are 2 other wins in this text that may really get under your skin. I mean, you really may not like this. Your ability to accept the station you find yourself in life and the work or the job that you have to do, if you can accept it, then that is also a gift. Your ability to accept your present, your reality, your experience, your ability to accept that is a gift. Now, I'm not saying that you can't excel beyond that. I'm not saying that you can't continue to grow and you're stuck there. That's not what I'm saying. Keep growing, keep advancing. We all need to continue to grow. I like this because it reminds me of the stages of grief, believe it or not. And I'm reminded of the stages of grief because of how the second verse reminds us of the human condition. We have a reason to grieve. Remember, Ecclesiastes is not for the newbie. Ecclesiastes is not for the person that has no experience and is young. Ecclesiastes is for the older guys with maturity and experience. We have a reason to grieve. We start life in a broken relationship with God that needs to be mended through faith in Jesus. And then this life is going to be over. I mean, we have the hope of the resurrection, but we also have a reason to grieve. The first 3 stages of grief in a 7-stage model are shock and denial, anger and shame, then bargaining, and then we have the wonderful stage where wonderful stuff starts to happen. And that would be the stage of depression/acceptance. After we stop beating ourselves up about the condition we find ourselves in. And if we can calm down and accept that God actually does have something better waiting for us because he's fixing it, namely eternity, our hope in the resurrection. And then we experience a stage called the upward turn. We begin to enjoy life. We restabilize. And we find meaning and purpose. Without the acceptance of what this life is like and how we show up in this life and who we actually are, we're going to have a hard time grounding in our search for meaning and purpose. God has given us good gifts. Whatever amount that you have been given of that gift, that is a win. God is gifting you with a win. Please accept it as a win and don't turn it into a loss. Whatever God has given you, don't beat it up. Don't beat yourself up. It's a win. I'm not saying that you're stuck. Keep growing, keep dreaming, keep moving forward, obviously. But while you're dreaming, while you're growing, while you're moving forward, don't create a narrative for yourself of your life as a story of losses. Because your life isn't a story of loss after loss. Your story is a story of God giving you gifts, even in those moments when you are far away from him. I was going to break this into 2 points, but I think I've spoken long enough. Plus, I'm really looking forward to how you have interpreted this text and what your application is. So here's my application. Please notice the wins that God has given you, and please don't turn them into losses. Do something to create a narrative of yourself that tells the story of the gifts that God has given you. The gifts mentioned in this passage, namely. There may be pain, absolutely. There may be loss in your story, absolutely. There are in mine too. Let's also be very mindful of the wins in our story so that our narrative isn't a narrative of a life of loss, but our narrative is a life filled with win after win because God has given us these minor or these major wins. Okay, that's it for me to you. For now, would you please like? Would you please share? Would you please subscribe? Would you please also ask for the link? We meet at 10:30 a.m. on Sunday and also 6 o'clock p.m. on Sunday just for men, for community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. I'll see you next time.